We are continuing to study for your final exam. And so you had some questions in front of you and had a chance to work on them. And so now we're just going to look at this problem 19 and 20 that you have here. And so 19 asks you to find the slope of the line if it exists. And so you're given 2 points. There's a couple ways that we can do this. We could look at where the point is, and we can see that that point right here is at x is 3, y is 3. And then we have a point down here when x is 4, y is -3. So recall slope is rise over run, the change in your y value minus all over the change in your x value. And so if we use that formula, we have -3 minus 3 all over 4 minus 3. So this gives us -6 over 1, which is equal to -6. Because of the graph, we could have just looked at, okay, we're falling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we know that the numerator is -1, and then we're running to the positive direction, just 1. So -6 over 1, you could have looked at it that way too.
On the test, we need to show our work though, correct?
If it gives you that graph like that, and maybe you could just like show me, oh, this is like -6, just so I know what you were doing if you didn't have anything there and that was a 1. And then that would show me that you knew what you were doing. This next one wants us to graph this linear function. It's in the form of mx plus b. And so we can tell what our slope is. Our slope is 1/2. And our y-intercept is -4. And so we have a y-intercept at -4. And if we rise 1, run 2, rise 1, run 2, we get that line in here. Next one wants you to find the slope of x equals 1. Any ideas? What does x equals 1 look like? What type of a line?
It's a vertical.
Yep, so vertical line. Does that one have a slope or is that one undefined?
Undefined.
Yep. Yeah, so this is undefined. And if you didn't know if it was undefined or not, we know we could just get a couple points, right? X is always 1. So 1, 0 is a point, 1, 1 would be a point. And then we could go and we could look at our change in our y value. So 0 minus 1 all over 1 minus 1, -1 over 0 is undefined. I would be okay with you just saying it's undefined. You don't have to show that. Okay, so we want to find slopes of lines that are parallel and perpendicular to the line passing through the pair of points, -110 and -4, -7. So why don't you guys try that really quickly and see if you can find the parallel and perpendicular lines of those 2 points. Pause the video. Okay, so first we need to find the slope, and we know that a parallel line has the same slope and a perpendicular line has their negative reciprocal of the slope. And so let's look at the change in y, so -7 minus 10, all over the change in x, -4 minus a -1. So this gives us -17 all over, this is really -4 plus 1, which would give us -3. 2 negatives make a positive, so this is 17/3. So the slope of the parallel line is also going to be 17/3, and the slope of the perpendicular line is going to be the negative reciprocal, so -3 over 17.
I wrote that.
So you're going to take a second and look at these two. So find an equation of a line through the pair of points. 4, -8, and 0, -5, and you're going to write the equation in the form of ax plus by equals c. So you had a chance to look at this, and so let's find the slope first. So two things we need when we're trying to find an equation of a line: we need a point and we need a slope. And if we don't have both of those things, we can find them. And so we're given 2 points, we know we can find the slope. And so we have a -5 minus a -8 all over 0 minus 4. So same thing as -5 plus 8 over -4. So this gives us 3 over -4. So our slope is -3/4. So now choose a point. Well, we're given actually what the y-intercept is, which is nice. And so we're given the y-intercept is 0, -5. So I know in the form y equals mx plus b, which is not the form it wants us to put it in, but we can start there. This is y equals -3/4 x plus, well, actually -5. It wanted us to write it in this form. And so let's get the x on the other side by adding 3/4 x to both sides. So we have 3/4 x plus y equals -5. And then let's clear the fraction. So let's multiply every single term by 4. And so distributing that 4 to the 3/4 x, that is just going to give us 3x. Plus distributing the 4 to the y, we get plus 4y equals -20. The other one says find the equation of a line with a given slope and containing the given point, write the equation using function notation. So I know, let's start with this y equals mx plus b. And let's plug in the values that we know. So we know that the slope here is -3. All times our x value, which we're given is -4, plus b, we don't know what b is, that's what we're trying to solve, is equal to what y is, and y we're seeing in this point is 2. So let's solve for what b is. And we can do that. 2 is equal to -3 times -4 is 12 plus b. So subtracting 12 on both sides of the equation, we get b is equal to -10. So b is -10, our slope is -3, and it wants function notation. So let's say f of x. So f of x is equal to our slope -3 times x minus 10. So one more problem on this portion of the exam. So looking at the set of points 2, 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, 4, and 5, 5, find the domain and range of the relation. And is that relation a function? Okay, so let's see if this is a function or not. So I tend to like to map these to see if it's a function. So we have our domain here, which are x values, our y values. We have that 2 is mapping to 1. We have 3 it goes to 2. We have 4 goes to 3. We have 5 goes to 4. And we have 5 goes to 5. So our domain is 2, 3, 4, and 5. The range are the y values 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And notice that we have one input that gives us more than one output. And so since 5 goes to 4 and 5, this is not a function. Okay, so we have the second part of the course, which was, and this is the exam, previous final exam. So solve the following inequalities, graph the solution set, and write your answers in interval notation. So I'm going to pause the video while you guys have a chance to try. Okay, so looking at this, first problem, we have a, I don't even think right now. We have this inequality here. We have negative 25 is less than or equal to negative 3c minus 4 is less than negative 10. We can split this up as two separate inequalities, and it's an and statement. We would have to do that if there was variables on all sides of the inequalities, but there's not. So we can just keep it like this. Let's add 4 to every side. And so doing that, we get negative 21 is less than or equal to negative 3c is less than negative 10. We want to get c by itself. We're going to divide by negative 3, but we're dividing by a negative. And so if we divide by a negative, our inequality signs flip. And so negative 21 divided by negative 3 is positive 7 is greater than or equal to c, which is greater than 10/3. I personally like to look at this the other way. 10/3 is less than c is less than or equal to 7. Oops, I made a mistake. Okay, when I added 4 to negative 10, this should have been negative 6. And negative, so that's going to be negative 3 over negative 6 over negative 3. That is 2. Okay, so looking at this, we have 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's everything between 2, not including 2, and 7. And so interval notation, parentheses, 2, comma, 7 bracket. Okay, so the next inequality we have is 5 minus x is greater than 6, and 1 plus 2x is less than or equal to negative 5. When we were just discussing with the video off, the difference between and or. And means intersection, what they have in common, and or means union. So you're taking both of the sets. So you're going to solve each one of these inequalities separately. So let's look at the first one. So we're going to get x by itself. Let's subtract 5 on both sides. We get negative x is greater than 6 minus 5, which is 1. Divide by negative 1, we get x is less than negative 1. Oops, what am I doing? I'm going to plot this up here. I'm going to do it above. So let's say that this is negative 1. So solving for the second inequality, let's get the 1 on the other side. So we have 2x is less than or equal to. So subtracting 1 from negative 5, we get negative 6. Divide both sides by 2, we get x is less than or equal to negative 3. And so we have less than or equal to, so we're including that negative 3, and we're going everything less than or equal to the left. So what they share in common is everything from negative 3 or negative infinity to negative 3. So always go smaller to larger. So in parentheses, negative infinity, comma, 3, negative 3 bracket. So the next one was the or statement. We're going to solve each inequality separately. And so let's get x by itself. So we have 6x plus 1 is greater than or equal to 5x. Actually, let's subtract 5x on both sides. So we have 6x minus 5x on the one side is x, plus 1 is greater than 0, and then subtract 1. So x is greater than negative 1. So we're looking at where negative 1 is on the number line and everything bigger than that, but not including. So parentheses shading to the right of negative 1. Here we have 1 minus x is less than -4. We want to get x by itself, so let's subtract 1 on both sides. We have negative x is less than -5. Divide through by -1, we have x is greater than 5. We had to flip the sign. So x is greater than 5. Okay. So we have a parentheses at 5 and shading everything greater than. Well, they both overlap, but we're not looking at what they have in common. We're looking at everything that is in one set plus what everything is in the other set. And so our interval notation, our solution is -1 to infinity. Okay. So now we have a compound inequality. Couldn't get the word for it a few minutes ago. -1/2 is less than or equal to 3x minus 1, which is divided by 10, and then less than 1/2. So solve that in compound inequality. Okay, so for this compound inequality, let's start by getting rid of the fractions. And so let's multiply every single piece by 10. And so if we multiply this -1/2 by 10, we get back -5. This is less than or equal to. When we multiply this 3x minus 1 over 10 times 10, the 10s cancel, and we're just left with the numerator 3x minus 1 is less than, and then 10 times this 1/2, well, 2 goes into 10 5 times. And so now let's isolate this x inside and between the two inequalities, and we can do that by adding 1 to every side. We get -4 is less than or equal to 3x is less than 6. So divide everything through by 3, we get -4/3 is less than or equal to x is less than, well, 6 divided by 3 is 2. And this is not going to be to scale. I'm just going to say this is -4/3, a bracket, and let's say that this is 2 over here, parentheses, and it's everything in between. So interval notation bracket -4/3, comma 2. Okay, so you had a chance to look at these absolute value and equations and solve them. And so the first one, we have the absolute value of 6x plus 2, and then outside the absolute value have another plus 2, and this is equal to 8. First thing you want to do is isolate your absolute value so we can subtract 2 on both sides. So we have the absolute value of 6x plus 2 is equal to 6. So once you've isolated that absolute value, you're setting what's inside the absolute value equal to the other side, or what's inside the absolute value can equal to the negative of the other side. And now we want to solve each one of those equations separately. So for the first equation, let's subtract 2 on both sides. We get 6x equals 6 minus 2 is 4. Divide through by 6, so we get x is equal to 4/6. You want to reduce your fractions. Both of those have 2 in common, so 4/6 can be reduced to 2/3. The second equation, let's subtract 2 on both sides. We would get 6x is equal to -8. Divide both sides by 6. We get x equals -8/6. Both of those are divisible by 2. And so that would be -4/3. The next one, we have an absolute value equal to absolute value. So to drop that absolute value, you're going to set what's inside the 1 equal to the other side, what's inside the other absolute value. Or we're going to take what's inside the absolute value, 9x plus 1, equal to the negative of the whole other absolute value, which is 6x plus 4. And we would solve these separately. So let's subtract 6x on both sides. Gets x's to one side. Subtract 1 on both sides, we get constants to the other. So 9x minus 6x is 3x, is equal to 4 minus 1, which is 3. Divide both sides by 3, we get x equals 1. For the second equation, we want to distribute that negative sign. And so we get 9x plus 1 is equal to negative 6x minus 4. So getting x to one side, let's add 6x. And constants on the other, let's subtract 1 on both sides. So we get 9x plus 6x, which is 15x, is equal to negative 1 minus 4 is negative 5. Divide through by 15, so x is equal to negative 5/15, but that reduces to negative 1/3. So we have two answers, x equals 1 and x equals negative 1/3. Okay, so we want to multiply 1.8 times 6. So let's just do that over here on the side. So 6 times 8 is 48. So carry my 4. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 4 is 10. And my decimal is only moving one spot. So that's not quite in scientific notation. So in order to write that one in scientific notation, we're going to need to move that space, a decimal, over one spot to the left. So doing that, that's 1.08 times just 10 to the first power. Let's combine these right now. So this would give us times 10 to the negative 14 power. Same base, add our exponents. And so here we have 1.08 times 10. Well, 1 plus a negative 14 is going to give us a negative 13. And so standard notation, we're going to move the decimal place over 13 places to the left, which means we have 12 zeros after the decimal. And then the 108. The next one, we want to do division. So 0.2 divided into 0.4. We need to move our decimal over. So we have 2 going into 4, and that goes twice. So we have 2 times, and now let's take the exponent on the bottom and subtract it from the one on the top. So 5 minus 11. So we got 2 times 10 to the negative 6 power. I'm just going to put a 0 after that 2. So we have 2.0 times 10 to the negative 6. And we need to move the decimal to the left 6 spots, which means there's going to be 5 zeros after that decimal before the 2. Okay, so just because we're running out of time, we're going to skip around. So the next problem that you guys are trying is the word problem. It says, on a shopping trip in Los Angeles, Rosaria Perez ordered 120 pieces of jewelry, a number of bracelets at $8 each, and a number of necklaces at $14 each. She wrote a check for $1,140 to pay for the order. How many bracelets and how many necklaces did Rosaria purchase? Okay, so you had a chance to work on it. I chose X to be my number of pieces of number of bracelets I got. Y equals the number of necklaces they got. We know that they got 120 pieces of jewelry. So we have X plus Y is equal to 120. And then we know the costs. So for the bracelet, we're going to do $8 for each bracelet they get, and X is the number of bracelets, plus $14 for each necklaces. And this was equal to a total of $1,140. It's up to you if you want to do substitution or elimination method. I would probably use the elimination method. I would multiply everything through by -8 to clear my x. If I do that, I get -8x minus 8y is equal to -0.16. Let me just multiply that. -960. And then I'm adding it to my other equation, is 8x plus 14y equals 140. 1,140. Okay, so we have 14y minus 8y is 6y is equal to, and then let's subtract 0. I'm going to borrow. So it's 14 minus 6 is 8. And then that's 10 really minus 9, which is 1. So if I divide both sides by 6, well, 6 goes into this 18 3 times with a 0 left. So we have 30 necklaces. And 120, because we have 120 total, minus the 30, that gives us a 90 bracelets. Okay, so we're gonna stop here for reviewing for the final. I am